Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. Now, one of the cornerstones of democracy is a free press. And yet today, there is less trust in those who report our news than probably at any time in history. Some of this stems from the fact that what is called the mainstream media is perceived as corporate media, doing the bidding of the wealthy elite. And the rise of cable news channels has created a 24-hour news cycle that creates pressure on the news to report events, and often they do this before they're able to corroborate their stories as well as they should. So if their initial reporting is inaccurate, that is what people remember. Even when they correct their mistakes later, what is remembered is the initial false report. And the scandals involving high-profile news anchors exaggerating their own exploits have done a lot of damage to the credibility of the networks. The anchor is the face of network news. If he isn't trusted, no matter how good the reporters are down the line, everybody's credibility takes a hit. And over the years, there has been a rise in what is called opinion journalism. This has created confusion about what is fact and what is simply opinion. And then there is the internet. We all flock there to get our news, including myself. And even though there is no evidence that the news sources online are any more credible or reliable than the mainstream media, in fact, the opposite is true. But in spite of that, people find their favorite online news source, which tells them what they want to hear, and they trust that. But whether you're on the left or the right, it is easy to find a source online that will tell you exactly what you want to hear. But that's what con men do. They tell you what you want to hear, you trust them, and then they run their scam on you. So if the source that you're turning to for news never makes you feel uncomfortable, never challenges your assumptions, chances are that they are the ones that are lying to you. Fox News, for example, is the one news network that consistently is proven to be deliberately lying to its viewers. Other networks may have their biases in one direction or the other, but nobody flat out lies like Fox does. And yet, their viewers swear by them. So let's take a look at one of the main accusations about the mainstream media, and this is corporate bias. This would assume that the media looks the other way at corporate malfeasance, that they cover up for the major corporations. But it's the mainstream media that has consistently uncovered and broken the news about corporate misconduct here in the U.S. Everything from the Enron scandal to the GM, the General Motors scandal, the Volkswagen scandal. It was the mainstream media that broke those stories. It was the mainstream media that reported on all of the shiesty practices that Wall Street had after the financial crash. Now, it's too bad that they didn't report on that stuff before the crash, but they did spare, they didn't look away, and they spared no one after the crash. We know about the Koch brothers' illegal dumping and stealing from Native American tribes because of the mainstream media. We know about the money wasted and misappropriated by Halliburton during the Iraq and the Afghanistan war because of the mainstream media. I've even heard news stories reporting on wrongdoing by a company, and at some point in the report they will mention that the company they are reporting on is owned by the parent company of the news channel. So when it comes to corporate malfeasance, our mainstream media, for one thing, it has the resources to find those things out, to research that, and they've done a pretty good job of talking about that. For example, after the oil spills in the Gulf oil spill, it was the mainstream media that reported about the shortcuts that the oil companies were taking. It was the mainstream media that reported about the problems with the cleanup. So I would have to conclude that the accusations of corporate bias in the mainstream media are exaggerated. And what you have to do is take a look at the people that are undermining the credibility of the mainstream media. For years, the right wing have been relentlessly attacking the mainstream media. Not because they don't tell the truth, but because they don't tell the lies that conservatives want to hear. House Republicans, for example, have been constantly leaking distorted or even outright lies about the Benghazi investigation. And when the media has fact-checked them and shown that there was nothing to the things that they were saying, well, they went after the media. Sarah Palin is almost always attacking the mainstream media. But it was the mainstream media that demonstrated what a clueless fraud she was. And Donald Trump is constantly attacking the mainstream media because it's a lot easier to do that than to answer questions about the Trump University scam or the Trump Institute, which was also a scam, or about using slave labor in the United Arab Emirates to build his golf course. Now, I'm not saying that the mainstream media is perfect. It is far from that. Like all of our institutions, human beings run those institutions and human beings are flawed. But the people who are attacking the mainstream media, seems to me, that they do that when they have something to hide. Thanks for listening.